WCLN 1170 Radio and Starvision Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by J.W. Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. The name of the show is We Should Know. I want to thank Nicole for a wonderful introduction she does for us each and every week, and all those folks that mention us on other shows on WCLN Radio, the Boogie Shoes Radio Network with Robert Stroud. Always talks about us on Saturday afternoon, and I try to promote that as much as I can. Wayne Weeks with the Southern Gospel Hour there that comes on each and every day. And, of course, the morning folks with Grandpa, Nolan Z, and the L-Man. And then we got the Fly, Tommy, that also mentions us as well. We want to give a shout-out to Don Smith. It precedes this show coming on Tuesdays. Don does a show called The Country Store, and I want to thank Don for mentioning us, and he's got somewhere over 50-plus years of experience in radio. A big shout-out to Don Smith. Today we're talking about a subject that really is affecting everybody, and I'm sure a number of our listeners are already aware that Dr. Ethan Lenker is leaving us. I'm going to say to maybe bigger things. I don't know whether it'll be better or not, but there'll be bigger things. He's going to Pitt County. Dr. Lenker, thank you for coming in and taking a few moments with us today to talk about education in public schools. Big issue in the legislature, big issue locally. Been here 5 years, and of course your family lives up in the Plainview community. You're going to have, I'm sure, doing a lot of thinking and have done a lot of thinking about this move. But before we get into a lot of the move stuff and where you're going, I want you to kind of digress with me a bit and think back 5-6 years ago, maybe even as you were contemplating coming to Sampson County from Jones County, and think about some of the challenges that you felt like you would be facing as you took the helm as the superintendent of county schools in Sampson County. Talk to us about that and what some of those challenges may have been.
Well, I guess going back, even back when the Board of Education hired me, one of the things we talked about or was asked was, what do you need to be looking at? What do you need to do? And one of the things I shared with the Board of Education then was, academically we seem to be, we obviously have great teachers and had areas that were doing great work, but it was inconsistent around the county. And I thought one of the biggest things I needed to work on was to getting everybody to the same page, getting everybody to work together, and see what we could, if we could get that to happen, see where we could go. Mm-hmm. 5 years ago, we were below the state average in every test score that was out there. As of, we don't have test scores this year, but last year's test scores, we were above the state average in almost everything. Mm-hmm. And we had closed the gap in everything, so we had done some great things. And that's just because, and I've said for 5 years, the people in Sampson County are great. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the biggest things I'm going to miss, just the way they took care of me and my family. But I came in and we got people sitting down at the table together. We laid out what we needed to do, where we were trying to go. Student academics or student achievement is always the number one priority. That's people always say, "What's your goal?" Well, it's always increase academics. That's pretty easy, but but having to get people to sit at the table and see that vision and map out how you're going to get there. The biggest thing we did was we got our curriculum people together. We hired instructional coaches. The board supported me in creating those positions. And again, that wasn't always easy. The first year here, I know people tell you that they didn't know what I was doing. They didn't know why I was doing it. But a couple years later, everybody's worked together. We can see the results, and our kids are doing great. The teachers and principals obviously have come to the table, and we got incredible people, and we work well for these kids.
When we think about consistency, and again, maybe thinking about your first year and looking at that idea of consistency, when you're looking at a county as large and diverse as Sampson County, basically I think 72 miles in length, considered to be either the largest or second largest, depending on whether you live in Robeson County or not. But when you think about that, how hard is it when you have folks maybe in the Union School District versus folks in Plainview or folks in Newton Grove, Lakewood? How hard is it to bring that consistency idea together and make sure that everyone is getting the same level of education? I guess fairness maybe is a word in education and delivery. And part of that package I would submit would possibly be materials, equipment, supplies, all those kinds of things.
It's not as hard as you think, to be honest. I mean, you know what people need to do their job. and you make sure they have it. You know, we talk about programs and things that takes to run a school, but bottom line, quality teachers. It's all about teacher quality. And I feel that we've addressed teacher quality, and we've looked at it, and our teachers are just, you know, top notch. And that's the reason, you know, that our academics are where they are. That's why our dropout rate has been cut in half. That's why, you know, our math achievement rates are way above the state average now. Our African American, Hispanic achievement gaps are much lower than the state average. You know, that's why. It's not necessarily we have a program or two, and we have academic programs. You know, we have some in some schools and not in others based on some need. But when we start evaluating, you know, what teachers are doing, and it's all about, you know, just teacher reflection. You know, they reflect on what's going on. What are the kids learning, and how do we know the kids have learned it? And if they don't, what do we do next? I mean, I've been, you know, tell people I sound like the biggest broken record because I've been saying the same thing for 5 years, and now, unfortunately, or you know. I hope, unfortunately, for people in Sampson County, I'm going to Pitt County, and I'm already preaching the same thing. You know, it's all about teacher quality. It's about, you know, teachers analyzing what they're doing, principals supporting those teachers, and you know, how do we know what we're doing, and how do we know the kids have learned it? You know, so we make it rocket science a lot of times, and it's not. We get down to the basics and getting everybody to the same table, and that's where I think it doesn't matter if you live in Ivanhoe or Plainview. Good quality instruction means you teach the curriculum, you assess what you taught, and then you know different ways to teach it if the kids didn't get it. And that's what it takes. And that's what we do here in Sampson County. You know, we haven't been playing a lot of games. At least I feel we haven't. I think the teachers and principals will tell you the same thing.
When you look, this question may be a question hypothetically that you could have been asked when you were interviewed in Pitt County, but the preparedness for what you have done here, preparing you for another step up. Pitt County, obviously a larger school system, obviously many additional students. Right. Greenville, huge, growing metropolitan area. You got a medical school there, a university there. How did Sampson County and the diversity that you did face here in Sampson County, how do you feel that prepared you to step into this whole other arena?
Well, being here allowed me to, and even prior to coming here back in Jones County, when I was superintendent there, I was involved in lots of things, you know, in multi-step processes. You know, I was involved in them. I wasn't just telling people, go do it and bring me the answers back. You know, same way here. You know, I'm involved, a little bit of a meddler, so to speak. You know, I like to see what's going on and be part of that. You know, I'm not telling people every step how to do it. You got to trust people and hire them and let them do their job, but being involved. And I think, you know, going into Pitt County is going to be the same thing. You know, I've seen all the processes, you know, from the directors here and the principals here and what it takes to pull this together. So now going there will be the same thing. Just I'll be able to just, you know, twice as many schools and 3 times as many kids.
Big issue with social diversity, and you alluded to it in your comment just a while ago as we were talking. You talked about African Americans, you talked about Spanish, Latino speaking folks. The Latino community in this county, and you've been on before and we've talked about this very frank and straightforward, is growing radically as far as numbers. It does have an impact on that one key factor you just mentioned, which is teachers. Tell us what you've done about that and how you have been able to, I guess, enrich the environment of bringing folks that are from that Latino community that maybe have trouble understanding English, and maybe talk about some challenges with that, because I know in the past when we've had you on, you mentioned what a challenge it is for an educator. You may have a great teacher, but if you fill that classroom up with 40, 50, 60% Latino and they're not understanding the language, how have you been able to deal with that gap?
We have one of the strongest migrant programs in the state, one of the strongest ESL, which stands for English as a Second Language program. One of the best ones I've ever worked with, obviously, and just incredible people. I mean, the individuals that make up those departments are as quality as anybody we have in Sampson County, and they are that liaison, you know, to the families, to where the families live, and to the school, and they bring it together. And they do an amazing job in making those families feel wanted and feel part of the school. And you can go to the schools, and you know that population has grown a lot, even since I've been here. And it does have challenges, but it's just like every other challenge. You figure out what it is, you figure out how to get the parents involved, and what the parents need to get involved, and how they can support the schools.
We've seen a lot of news media coverage, especially on the national level and even state level, but more particularly on the national level. I guess just simply because the national media runs these things a lot on immigration and the impact of immigration and the importance of coming together with some kind of immigration reform. Mm-hmm. How critical is an immigration reform law on the national level? How critical is that to impacting the schools and improving the schools on a local level in these county schools that you have served in? And you could look at Jones, Sampson, and even Pitt. I mean, is that very critical? Because you know, folks tell me there's a huge number of folks, and the literature says this, a huge number of folks that's in the shadows that hadn't come forward. There may be more than 50% in the classroom. We just might not know that. How does that impact, and what gives you pause when you think about that?
Well, first of all, just make yourself 5 years old again and put yourself in another country where you can't speak their language. How would it make you feel? Mm-hmm. And that's what we try to understand. You know, these kids, for the most part, or maybe 100% of them, you know, they're just kids. They're following their parents. Mm-hmm. You know, that's and you know, we educate kids. That's what we do in Sampson County Schools. But you know, it's the kids, for the most part. You've seen the development of the population, and you know, these kids are staying here. Mm-hmm. And the families are staying here. So we need to make them part of our community. And the best thing we can do is educate them so they are a part of our community going forward. And I think that's the biggest thing we can do. But again, it's just a matter of trying to figure out where they're coming from. I mean, especially when you're dealing with kids. These kids, you know, we've got migrant kids, we've got some kids, and it's not all from the Mexico region, though predominantly it is, but we've had, you know, kids come from China who come straight here. You know, how hard would that be? Mm-hmm. You know, if I put you in a Chinese school where no one spoke Chinese or spoke English, and just you. So I mean, that would be tough.
And we continue to see additional languages introduced, although they might not be as populated as Latino, but these other languages are being introduced here.
And we're not as diverse as I think some school systems have hundreds of different languages. You know, we're in the lower than 10 probably, but that's just the nature of our makeup of our county.
Okay. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in a moment. We're talking with Dr. Ethan Lenker as moving away here from Sampson County Schools. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching We Should Know. You're on Star Vision Channel 16, Star Vision Cable Channel 16, WCLN 1170 AM radio. We're coming to you on Tuesdays, 2:30 to 3:30. There's a replay on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 7 p.m. with a summation reprint in the Sampson Weekly newspaper. We're also now uploading our shows to YouTube. You can go there, type in We Should Know. EDU should bring it up for you. There's a number of shows already online. This show will be uploaded usually on a Wednesday or Thursday of the same week that it is airing. So we hope you take a look at that. I want to thank everyone for continuing to send those questions and comments to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. Had some questions for the guest we've got today, Dr. Ethan Lenker. I'll be talking about some of those questions coming up in a moment from listeners. And again, appreciate you giving us a shout out on it. Dr. Lenker, thank you again for being here. You're on the way out. How does that feel, just saying, well, look, I'm got what, another week, 2 weeks?
Another month or so.
Another month or so. You're closing up shop. You're tidying up, locking the ends down, passing the gavel, I guess, in one sense, to the next person, whomever that may be. Is that a kind of a good feeling, a bad feeling, or is it a mixture?
It's a big mixture.
Okay.
You know, that's this kind of happened, and this whole move came out, and when the opportunity came all the way forward, I had to take it, obviously. But Sampson County is a great place. I came here 5 years ago. Didn't know what to expect. I knew it was big. Big place, a lot of kids, bigger than where I was, but got here, and the Board of Education has been fabulous. The directors and principals and teachers have been fabulous. The community has been so supportive. We got some great friends here, and that I expect to keep a lot of these friends for the rest of my life. Just good people.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the reasons it was a hard decision. I mean, we were genuinely happy here.
You know, as we go through life, we learn not to burn our bridges behind us. We can never tell when we want to traverse that same bridge. So
Sure.
I think that's important. We were talking about, as we went on break a while ago, we were talking about the whole issue with students. And as you mentioned, some of the most important things in the school system, of course, is the teachers teaching and the students that are learning. The diversity of the school system from the time you came here 5 years ago until now. What is the largest growing population of children that you see? And we talked a little bit about how you're adjusting to that, but do you see that change continuing to grow, or do you think there's a ceiling now? And we talked about the immigration reform, how important that was to look at it. For a local superintendent, immigration reform, classroom growth, communication skills, how are you dealing with that? And how do you look at it futuristically? How are you dealing with it?
Well, if you look at the demographics of the Sampson County over the last 10 or 12 years, you can see the Latino community has grown the most, obviously, but that really has kind of leveled off. So we're in kind of staying pretty much about where we are. You know, we're having just a couple, maybe 200 or 300 kids in the last couple of years, but our percentages stayed about the same. You know, just pretty close. So now, again, you know, it's meeting and getting to meet and getting the information out to all the parents is always tough. You know, getting parents involved. You know, it's always, we don't know how to get involved. The schools don't want us involved. You hear it all the time both ways. And you know, generally the schools need parents to be involved if we're going to be successful. We have great PTOs at our schools, but we also need parents to come to the meetings. We also need parents sitting with kids and helping them or making them read a little bit at night and checking behind them, at least that they're trying to do some homework. You know, that's the biggest support thing we need. You know, and if there's a problem, you know, help us with your child and figure it out, how to make it better for that kid. You know, those are always challenges, and it doesn't matter where you go to school.
Do we have students in classrooms as we sit today talking that are there and there's not a translator and they're trying to pull as much as they can from an English book or from a teacher speaking in English, and not necessarily just Sampson County, but throughout the state, because I know you're networked very well with other superintendents. Are there a number of kids just sitting there trying to pick out words and figure out what's going on and kind of bobbing and weaving through the whole process?
Well, at different times of the day, obviously, yes, because we don't have one-to-one translators.
Right.
No one does, you know. And if you've got 100
it's not
languages,
a utopia environment.
Right? If you've got 100 different languages, you certainly don't have 100 different. You know, people can speak all 100 languages at every place. So, it's just a matter of excuse me, getting, you know, you pull those kids and let them work with an ESL teacher and get them that experience. That ESL teacher, again, is English as a second language, can help them understand, you know, directions and learn how to speak. And, you know, kids are so resilient. I mean, these kids, we have kids who come straight to our Sampson County, and after a year and a half, they're speaking English. You know, it's amazing. You know, we have, you know, we can sit in a foreign language class for 4 years in high school, and who knows what we get. You know, but these kids are certainly resilient and are picking up the language quick. And, you know, when they come to school, it's, you know, they're basically almost, you know, entrenched in the language and hearing it all day long. So you do pick up phrases, and eventually you pick everything up, which is, you know, one of the reasons you look at our math scores. You know, math is more of a universal language, and academically, you know, our math scores are you know, blowing it out of the water. You know, we're doing a great job, and our language arts skills, obviously, when you have a large Hispanic population and a migrant population, that's going to be a bigger challenge. But you can see what we've done over the last 5 years. You know, we've closed that gap by almost probably about 80%. So it's we've done good work.
What are some of the specific changes that you've looked at in 5 years as this population has grown? And I want to spend a little time on immigration. As this population has grown and there's more folks in that classroom, what are the dynamics that you have changed and recommended as superintendent that the school board has brought to your attention, or some of your advisory boards have, that you've been able to change that you feel real good about as it relates to these folks that are speaking a second language? Because, you know, as we've talked before, you have parents out there, and it's great to engage the parents, but quite often the parents can't speak English. Right. So they've got a child that may be in, I don't know, K3 through 5 or something, and this kid is trying his or her best to play on what seems to be kind of an uneven playing field. And I think your analogy was very important. How would I feel, any of our listeners, to be put in another country and not be able to speak the language? Obviously, you would be at a disability immediately. So is there specific things that you have done that you feel is somewhat unique, that is maybe innovative or creative, or do you know of other school systems that's done something?
There are some neat programs out there, just immersion classes, basically, and we've toyed with the idea and looked at creating like a Spanish immersion class where everything is taught Spanish and English, by two teachers. You put kids in there and you do everything twice. That's a huge advantage for the English-speaking kids because they're getting Spanish from day one. One thing we need to realize is all these Spanish-speaking children, in 15 years or 10 years from now, they're going to be able to speak two languages. And our kids a lot of times are getting two years of Spanish in high school. I mean, that's almost wasting time. But if we did the immersion class where kids get Spanish, the whole way through, and that's kind of a budget issue as well. You could talk about that, but it goes back down to teacher quality and what do the kids need to know. And we've been promoting differentiating instruction for these kids since I've been here. It's all about, what do these kids know? And how do you know, and what are you going to do? And if a kid's struggling, speaking English, he's going to need a little more help. And that's what you got to do as a teacher. And our support system there is to help the teachers be able to see that and help the teachers meet the needs of those individual kids.
What would you say to the person that you're in an auditorium and you sometimes hear this kind of thing coming from other people, and someone may say, I'm sitting here listening to this Spanish communication, at the same time I'm getting it in English, and quite frankly, these folks ought to know English, or they shouldn't even be involved in the process. How do you respond to that as a superintendent?
As far as the kids, we're teaching them English. I mean, we're working with all the kids going forward, and when they graduate, they'll be fine. Excuse me. So, our job is kids, and that's what we work with, and that's our goal is to make these kids either college or career ready when they graduate, and the ones we're graduating are college or career ready, and that's our goal. It's not necessarily are they going to pass the test in second or third grade, but when they graduate high school, where are they going? Are they ready for work? Are they ready for college? Are they ready for the military? And that's the long-term goal of any school system. That's what we're working with. And we give the parents as much support as we can so they can help us at home.
Do you think there's an advantage, however, and I think you alluded to this a while ago, and I want to kind of pull that out a bit, to have a child that does have dual language capability, especially in an international marketplace now? Is it not an advantage to some degree, or would you agree or disagree, or what's your comment on a child that when they come out of high school that may have that ability to communicate in two languages? How great an advantage would that be?
It's certainly not a detriment by any means.
Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly not going to hurt anything.
Exactly.
And, if the trends continue, then there's no reason not to have that skill. So that's the key part. Just get everyone the skills they need.
And I think the other side of that, too, is as we look at this, again, this immigration reform moving forward, we see more people coming to the table, literally, not my comment, but comment that on major media lately is called coming out of the shadows, whatever that means, but I'm assuming accountability is more in the presence of Latino-speaking folks. We may see a shift in leadership as well. That dynamic is real.
Maybe,
and I'm speaking primarily of school boards and other kinds of governance models that you would think would be there.
You would assume as the Latino community grows and stabilizes that those individuals will then seek leadership positions in the county.
And there would be different expectations.
Right, sure.
And moving forward with that, I think is a key factor as you go to Pitt County. And I'm sure there's some similarities there because, although there's a university system, Pitt still has a huge rural base as well, similar to Sampson. So that's something I think we should think about as you exit and somebody else comes in. Hopefully they'll do the homework you did before they step in here. But I think your words to them on this show and personally, whomever that person may be, will be very important. So let's take another break. We're talking with Dr. Ethan Lenker. Dr. Lenker is leaving Sampson County Schools, going to Pitt County. Made that decision a few weeks ago. He will be missed. We're getting some ideas about where he's been, some things we may need to look at in the future. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. The name of the show is We Should Know. We're coming to you from WCLN 1170 Radio. We're also coming to you on Starvision Channel 16 TV and Starvision Cable Channel 16 as well. A reprint, the Sampson Weekly newspaper, uploaded to YouTube. So if you have a reason to take a look at us again, we're replayed at 7 p.m. on the TV channels, as well as today, Tuesday, from 2:30 to 3:30. We're talking with Dr. Ethan Lenker. Dr. Lenker's been with us now for 5 years here in Sampson County. Time goes fast. We're talking about issues and challenges you faced coming into the system. Many of those challenges, obviously, for you, goes right to the classroom and to students. I think one of the things that you've presented since you've been here, Dr. Lenker, is your heart is with the students and teachers in the classroom, and you've demonstrated that a number of times, and as you've talked about that several times as we've had you on the show. We're in an interesting dynamic, and one of the areas I think that's important during your tenure here, you've seen it a couple of times, and one time really horrifically at Sandy Hook, the whole issue of school safety. Going forward, looking back at facing that in a rural school system like Sampson County, what would you say and what have you learned about school safety and the importance of that now that we have gone through some of the dynamics of looking at it, especially the sensational stuff that we've seen on TV? It's kind of died down a little bit. What are some of the things that you would look at now and say that you have accomplished and some things that you would like to see accomplished as it relates to safety?
Yeah, we've obviously done lots of things. We still have a long way to go. You know, we've upgraded all of our camera systems, and we have better door lock entry systems and that's been the key things. But being just a little more aware of what's going on and in the world, but also in Sampson County. You know, we're now trying to figure out ways to enclose our campuses a little bit more, because you know our campuses, some of them are 50, 60 years old, built in a different day and time, where people came and go almost as they wanted to. And that was kind of encouraged, back then. And now, of course, it's a little bit different. So we're looking at trying to figure out how to enclose certain areas of the campuses so kids can walk through different buildings without having to go outside. Just keep them, everybody as safe as we possibly can, I'm sure all the other Sandy Hook and everyone thought the same thing. It's what a great place, and the same thing you say here about Sampson County. We got great people here. We're a good rural community, but we have to be just as vigilant and make sure we're preparing and keeping our buildings as safe as we can. And that's obviously, you talk about academics as the number one goal. The second goal, of course, is keeping the kids safe, and the kids got to feel safe. Whether that's from, and we've talked about bullying in the past. Yeah. Whether that's bullying or outside influences, but those are the biggest two things. And I can, as a dad with two kids, that's what you want. You want your kids to learn. You want them to be safe when they go to school and want to go to school.
What role does technology play in the whole safety issue with schools? And in that I'm thinking of everything from communication to cameras to visual and audible monitoring. What is
with the internet? You can do about anything you want nowadays. It's scary, to be honest, is what it is. But we can send out text messages to parents. We can send out phone calls to parents. We can send out phone calls, just do a quick blast, get all the parents in a matter of minutes. We could also get a text message, same way to kids. Whatever you need to do, so you can get the information out pretty quickly, and you can do that on a system-wide basis, individual school basis. We now have it where we're working with the Sheriff's Department, where he has access to our cameras. The Sheriff's Department can pull in our parking lots, get internet access, pull up our cameras. We're getting that it's working in some places and getting it set up in the rest of them. So those are things that gives the Sheriff's Department, just better access to see what's going on. We had the big drill at Midway Elementary, 6 or 8 months ago now. Right. Saw a lot of great skills, saw a lot of great teamwork. And that has actually helped us prepare, for what we need to be doing in the future.
I think a lot of information that I see coming from that particular drill is a lot of credit is to our emergency management department. A lot of credit to all of our emergency responders in the county. that came out and participated in that, and it brought up some excellent questions and some key points that we all have to address. As we look at the whole issue of safety, I think the dynamic for a superintendent, as you have said before, is the safety of that child in the classroom. As you kind of are looking at exiting now in the next few weeks and moving on, and you flash back over your shoulder and think, is there something that parents need to know as it relates to their role in safety, what they should either double check or look at or think about or speak to their child about? If you had to say something to parents as it relates specifically to safety and children's safety. And the reason I ask that question is relatively obvious, because we see kids in North Carolina schools. It goes a few months and all of a sudden somebody says, well, little Johnny or Susie or somebody showed up with a gun in their backpack, and everybody just completely dismantled and so forth. So what are little things that you would say to parents?
It's just be involved with your kid and know what's going on. And if you see things going on you don't understand, we've got social workers, we've got psychiatrists, we've got guidance counselors who are there to listen and try to help with the situation. We'll go out and help and get more support if you need it. Those are the big things. Just a matter of being involved with your kid, and don't be afraid to come to the school and say, we need some help, or can you help with this, or have you seen these problems too? They're the two biggest things.
One of the things we hadn't discussed, and of course, again, a lot of folks know we've had you on before, but one of the things we really hadn't gotten into a lot, and I want to just touch on this because, I see it just as an important issue as safety and some other issues, and that's the issue of transportation in two categories. And I'll toss this on the table unless you talk about it any way you choose to approach it. But one of them, of course, is the school bus situation in the county and the number of buses that are on the road. It's a huge number right here in Sampson County. The other situation is the transportation, the private vehicle transportation to schools. There's probably not a high school that goes by that you can pass that high school look, and the parking lot is full of vehicles. And granted, back during even my day, and trust me, I'm not that old, but back during my day, there was a lot of vehicles, and I was fortunate back during that period of time, probably in junior and senior, I think I drove a vehicle to school. But now it seems like it's quadrupled or maybe 10 times even. There's almost an expectation when a child gets to the point they can drive, there's a car on campus. Talk about both of those and what impacts it has for superintendent and for school system.
People always, at 4:30 in the morning, you're driving around looking at roads in the middle of winter, you're thinking two things: high school kids driving to school, and buses. And sometimes you figure, well, buses can make it, but high school kids driving, you want to make sure they're get there on time. They're not trying to go a little extra, an extra 10 or 20 miles an hour to get to school on time. We've seen tragedy there, but how do these kids drive? And they need to learn, and they don't have a lot of experience driving in snow or ice or things like that. So you take all that into consideration. But here with 130 buses, and you got bus routes that are 2+ hours long in every district, that's a long time for any kid to have to sit on a bus. Again, when I'm talking about it with my people, I say the same thing. Do you want to ride the bus for 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours? You get on the bus at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning and get home about 5? That's a long day.
And there's a lot of people don't probably think about it. If their kid doesn't do that, they probably don't think about it that much. But for the parents that their children are doing that, it's a huge, huge concern for them.
We got probably close to 5,000 kids riding buses every day, maybe 5,500 kids. I mean, that's a lot of kids on buses. And, some of them are 2 hours there and 2 hours back. And that's hard on a kid. And then we can't expect that kid, and this is another whole topic I understand, but to get home and do 3 hours worth of homework. There's not that much time in the day. The kid, we got to, and that's one of the things we've talked about. We've got our professional learning communities where teachers get together and talk about what the kids can do and what the kids need to do, especially for homework and things like that. So, but one of the things we're going to tackle this year, the administration behind me and the principals and directors are going to be following up on this. This is something that we need to do, is looking at our whole grading system. And what is our grading practices and our procedures. Those are a couple of things that I hope will continue on in Sampson County with these discussions.
I want to get into accountability in just a moment before we do run out of time. But one question came from a viewer because as soon as you agreed to come sit down with us and check your schedule, I started promoting it, and I had a viewer that said, well, ask him about cursive writing. and it's important. And this viewer literally had a very good point. He said, you know, has cursive writing been taken out of schools? And I noted there was some discussion about that in a few months ago about writing, that because of technology there was less and less need for that. But the point the viewer made was this, that contracts, if you buy a car, you got to sign paperwork. You've got to be able to put your signature on something. Even if something as small as that is critically important. Do you see a time when cursive writing, the ability to pick up a pen and write a letter or a note to somebody, is going to go away? What's your view on that?
Well, you know, I know the General Assembly got involved this year.
Yes, they did.
And that, not sure why they felt they needed to get involved in something like that. But we've never gotten away with it. We've gotten away from cursive writing. We still teach it in second grade. Kids practice it through third grade. And, you know, it doesn't take that long to learn how to write your name. Mm-hmm. You know, let's be honest. It just doesn't take that long. But, you know, in the most part, I'm not sure where cursive writing is going to go. You know, it's other than writing your name, you know, every document out there is typed. Mm-hmm. You know, there's very few documents that are actually written in cursive that you actually have to read. You know, I know I still use it, and I write in cursive all the time, and my assistant, you know, God bless her, she has a hard time enough reading my handwriting with it, but being able to take notes and being able to write is something kids are always going to be able to do. I mean, you got to be able to write something down and come back and then either put it on a computer or somebody else will help you write it up or whatever the case may be. We never went away from it. We don't do it as much as we did probably 15 years ago because it's just not as important, you know. But we're also teaching a lot more things now that we didn't teach 15 years ago either. So you can't teach everything you taught 15, 20, 30 years ago and teach everything kids need to know now. Because right now we've got, you know, instructional programs that kids are using, technology they're using. Mm-hmm. You know, the whole curriculum is different as well now. So cursive is one of those things that it's kind of really, I think it's really in limbo. Although with the General Assembly, I guess we're going to do it. And you need to do it for some things. But, you know, people say you need to do it so you can read the U.S. Constitution. Well, you pull it up online, and it's in block print.
Yeah, you can change it whatever format you want to change it to.
I know the way the way it was written, 200 plus years ago, but it's nowadays it's not quite as important.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. We're going to take our last break, and we'll be back talking with Dr. Ethan Lenker as he prepares to exit Sampson County Schools. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. The name of the show is We Should Know. If you just happened to be tuning in, we're kind of in our last segment here. We're talking with Dr. Ethan Lenker with Sampson County Schools. It'll be leaving the school system here, taking a new job in Pitt County up in Greenville, East Carolina University territory in the next few weeks. So we're trying to get some ideas of what has happened, what may be needed for the future, and it's things we look at. Dr. Lenker, again, thank you for being here. I want to touch quickly on accountability and testing. A big issue. A few weeks ago, the Governor Corey, made a comment that he felt as though there was so many tests going on in schools now, and I'm sure you probably recall this, and I'm paraphrasing, that students didn't really have time to learn because they were always taking tests. What's your comment on that, and where do you think we're going with accountability and testing?
Well, there's a lot of tests, obviously. I mean, we're testing every subject there is out there nowadays, and it's almost getting to the point where it's overkill. I mean, every high school class, for example, has what's called a Measures of Student Learning, MSL test. And that's, why we have to test every kid and every subject doesn't necessarily make a whole lot of sense, but I think the biggest thing we need to look at is there is accountability, and you need to be accountable, and we're certainly not afraid of accountability in public education. We've been doing a good job with it for the last 15 or 18 years with the ABCs, and now we're moving into a new program. But I think the biggest thing is, if you look at all the tests that around the world that they judge everybody on, you talk about the NAEP test and things like that, it's like 2% of the people take that test around the world, and that's how they judge a country or judge a state. Mm-hmm. But here, to judge a school system, we have to test 100% of the kids. Mm-hmm. It doesn't quite make a whole lot of sense. But there is reasons why you do have some tests. I mean, you need to know where the kids are, how much they're learning, and what they need to go back and be retaught. Mm-hmm. So there is reasons for doing some of the tests. And what we call benchmark assessments are what we do internal. We test internal just like your doctor would do tests just to see how you're moving and how you're progressing. We know we started here. We want to get you here, so we got to have some intermittent assessments to make sure we're getting you there.
This accountability reform effort that came into play, did more testing come along with that curriculum effort for accountability and reform? Was that part of the increased testing, or has testing been there for a number of years already and that's just part of it? Because we are talking about core course curriculums and various other things.
Just look at the high schools. I mean, for a couple of years we had 3 tests, Algebra 1, Biology, and English 1. And now we have one about every course. The CTE classes, your career technical education classes, always had their tests. But now we have tests in every subject. It doesn't matter what English class, doesn't matter what math class, social studies, physics, doesn't matter. We're having tests in every single one of them now. So the question is there more tests? There's a whole lot more.
And those tests directly relate to determining skill sets, or do they determine what a person has learned, or is it determining what a skill set a person has? Because I find it's kind of two different dynamics.
Yeah, it's actually they're being generated now to help with the teacher evaluation as part of the race to the top, and that the state signed off on several years ago.
Right.
You have to have teacher evaluations, and part of that evaluation has to be based on a test. So if you teach, I was a calculus and physics teacher. There were no state tests for that, so they now have one. For those teachers. So there are more tests.
Now, when we look at tests, also, I got to ask the same question that we kind of referred to a while ago. Is those tests administered in both English and Spanish as well, or other languages, or just English? And if it's just English, does that set back or set apart a person that has trouble reading English? Does that really then say if they miss question 4 through 6, maybe they just couldn't read the question?
That could be, but generally, when students show up, specifically younger students, they're exempt from testing, at least in the reading areas. They don't have to actually take that test the first year. They get a little bit of a chance to learn English first. What we're seeing now is actually a lot of our Hispanic kids are actually placing out of the ESL. We're seeing a lot more of that. The kids are coming here, they've been with us longer. So now by the time we get to high school, we have many fewer ESL students in the high schools. Now, I'm not saying Hispanic, I'm just saying ESL.
Right,
So
they've been more involved in the system and understand
They've been here
better.
since kindergarten. By the time they get to 9th grade, they're speaking English just fine. And they're not having any trouble reading these tests. I mean, that's not the issue there.
Do you find that Sampson County, particularly when you look at other counties, and you may not have looked at the data lately, but are we above the number of Latino students compared to other counties, or about the same, or kind of where do we fall in the range of students in our classrooms that would be considered Latino students?
That's more geography in the state. It kind of depends, and also the agricultural business and what businesses are out there for jobs. I think we're right at 32%, and that's similar. This little band of between us and Duplin, Bladen counties, we're seeing. That's pretty much it's about standard.
A question that also is often asked, and when I get educators on, I will ask this question to satisfy some of our listeners as well as I think it's a good question. For parents, and you indicated a while ago parents should be more involved in students' education, and that's a genuine, that's a very positive point and something they should do. However, parents tell me oftentimes they don't feel qualified. They'll say to me, well, ask the superintendent, what do you do if you really don't know how to help them because you don't know enough about whatever it is they may be in? Are there avenues and advisory help for parents that need to maybe push their student for some additional prep? Can they get that from the school? How do they go about getting additional help if they don't know what to do?
And that's, we're now teaching a whole new curriculum, and everything's different. It's a big change. So even for the parents who have been here, and been through school here, the way we're teaching is different. So there's a lot of things that have changed. The way we're asking questions, what we're asking kids to do is different than it was 10 or 15 years ago. So everybody needs a little help. Doesn't matter if you're from here or if you've moved here recently or if you're Latino. It just doesn't matter. What you need to do is the same thing. We do have a parent liaison. Her name is LaTanya Melvin. She works right now. She's housed at Salemberg Elementary School, but she sets up a lot of parent meetings and sets up bullying things. But biggest thing is go see the counselor. Sometimes people are afraid to see principals or whatever, but go see the counselor. School counselor's there for one thing, to help parents and to help kids. I mean, that's what they do. So go and talk to that and say, this is what my son's or daughter's trying to do. I can't help. Can I get some extra help here from school? There's not a school in Sampson County that's going to say no.
So each school has a counselor. So all they have to do, if you're talking to the parents right now that's going through this situation, what they need to do is pick up the phone, call the school that their child goes to, ask to speak to the counselor, and that counselor comes online.
Let me come see you and let me get some help. That's all they got to do.
And they set up a time, an appointment, and they go there with the child.
Right. We ask that you call us because you never know what's going on in school.
Right.
It's obviously, when you got several hundred kids and lots of things going on, you never know where the counselor's going to be pulled that day. But if you get a chance, call the school and go see what's going on and sit with the counselor. And I say the counselor, you can sit with the principal, sit with the teacher, it doesn't matter. But we have those people there who will sit with you and help you. Especially if you come in and say, this is what my kid's doing. I can't help them a whole lot at home. And, as the curriculum changes, we see that a lot. What can you do to help me? And every school in Sampson County will find a way to help.
Well, Dr. Lenker, we've kind of coming down to the last few minutes of our show, and again, I want to thank you for being here and taking a few minutes, even though as you are moving to Pitt County, you still take time to talk to the parents, talk to the folks in the county. I want to give you a few minutes and ask you if you will just kind of speak from the heart as if you were talking, if they're sitting there listening to you, to the parents, to the students, and of course to the teachers and staff of the school system here in Sampson County. Those three areas, and you've already said they are near and dear to your heart, so I want to give you a few minutes just to address your comments as you exit Sampson County to those people, to the parents, students, and of course the teachers.
The biggest thing for me was truly how happy my family was. They've got great friends. My kids have got good friends in the school system. We've made a lot of friends here. The teachers, I've got more emails over the last week or two. Actually, I guess just a week, but they're just saying how much they appreciated the time we've been able to work together.
You just didn't know how popular you were.
If I'd known that, I stayed, I guess. But I mean, no. But it's really been touching. To realize that here's the superintendent who a lot of people don't even know and don't care about. But here I'm getting emails and I'm seeing people on the streets and whatever just saying, you're going to be missed. You've done a good job for us. We appreciate it. And the fact that they've been able to take me in even though I'm not from Sampson County. I see kids. I'll always like to be able to go to the football or basketball games and find a couple kids that I actually would be able to get a chance to know. And we got great kids here in the county, and they're all, doesn't matter what high school or middle school or elementary school. Some know me just as that guy, or you're the principal's boss, whatever, and but it's been a real nice 5 years, and the kids have been great, and again, the teachers and the principals, it was pretty emotional for me, to be honest. There were times that, I really debated this. I mean, this wasn't like, when I first started, you said bigger and better, and it's definitely bigger, no doubt, but, Sampson County is a great place, and I will certainly tell anybody who's going to apply for this job, you're going to a wonderful school system, and you're going to a wonderful community. The people will take care of you. You showed you care about the kids, and that you're not there for any reason other than kids and making things better. They take good care of you here. And the Board of Education has been very supportive. The whole central office staff. It's just been a great 5 years.
Well, I'll have to say that you are definitely a superintendent that believes in being where the students are, because I've seen you where buses are loading. I've seen you at ball games. You're literally on the front lines, and it's certainly been a pleasure over the past 5 years. And again, you've not hesitated when I've asked you to come on this show and talk frankly and forthright about issues. So we certainly appreciate everything that you have done, the dedication of time. I do not envy at all the school board's efforts in trying to replace you, because they have a huge pattern to replace. I want to thank you for coming in and talking to us today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking with Dr. Ethan Lenker of Sampson County Schools. He'll be exiting, going to Pitt County. We will be missing him. And we ask you to tune in and stay with us as we see you again next week on the radio.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question or comment regarding this or any episode, please send your email questions and or comments to jwsimmonsedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday afternoon beginning at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.